I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Welcome to the Saturday Morning Community Forum. Each and every week for the next 6 weeks, we're going to be bringing you excerpts of our convention. I know some of you were unable to get on this past week, August the 1st through the 6th. Well, don't worry about it. We're going to show you the convention every Saturday throughout the month of August and September. I hope you will enjoy and get involved and get inspired and become a member. Begin to push membership and begin to work around the agendas that we've talked about in education and economic development and criminal justice reform, what we've been talking about in terms of poverty and housing initiative, what we've been telling you about sports and fairness in sports, and what we've been talking about with our 1,000 churches. There's something for all of you to do. Our students are on college campuses all around the nation. We want every student to register on the college campus in the city where your college is, register to vote there, and make sure that you have temporary residence in that city, that state. You can vote for those offices to be elected at the city, the county, at the state, and the federal level. We have power, and young people, you have the power, you have the numbers. You need to use your numbers, use your social media networks, register on the college campuses where you are enrolled. Do that now, and I tell you, it'll be a powerful march to the polls this fall and in 2022. Many governors are going to be reelected. Many U.S. senators are going to be running for office. You can determine whether or not there's somebody that will vote for change and elimination, reduction of student loan debt. It's going to be in the House and the Senate at the federal level. You can vote at your state level. Wherever you are, register and vote on the college campus where you're enrolled.
Well, this is Bishop Tavis Grant, the National Field Director for the Rainbow Push Coalition. I want to thank you once again for joining our International Saturday Morning Forum. As you know, the work of Jesse Louis Jackson continues 55 years strong, and we're keeping hope alive. This week, the Senate gave a great deal of attention to an infrastructure bill that is greatly needed for jobs and revitalizing the economy and rebuilding, as a matter of fact, building back better America. But yet and still, our democracy, the infrastructure of democracy, is being dismantled by 400 pieces of legislation across the country, by 47 states, who hope to make sure that your ballot gets in the box, but it won't get out of the box. So very critical that we fight for the For the People's Act, the John Lewis Voter Advancement Act, raising the minimum wage to $15 to ensure 32 million people in one stroke of the president's pen, lifestyles and livelihoods go to another level of economic sufficiency. And of course, we're fighting for DC statehood. You can make a big difference. Go to rainbowpush.org or hit us on Facebook, Instagram, and or YouTube, and join us today. Call us at our national headquarters, 773-373-3366. Democracy is in peril. We're facing the greatest consequential, existential crisis of our lifetime. And there's no better time. It's always better when we get together, and we win when we fight. Let's fight back. Let's do it together. Thank you.
We want to talk about several things, but today we're focused on women in sports. You've seen what's happened to women in the Olympics. You've seen what has happened to women in NCAA, how there's a disparity in how some schools provide for women's sports versus what they provide for male sports. Well, we're going to change that. We want equity in sports for women and African Americans and other people of color. But we focused on women today, And in just a few moments, right after the break, we're going to have Pastor Joe Bryant introduce the Women in Sports panel. You don't want to miss this. The other thing I want to share with you, as we approach August 28th, anniversary of the March on Washington, we are calling for demonstrations all across America. We're going to be marching for a change in the public policies that impact us. We're talking about DC statehood. We're marching for federally protected right to vote. We are marching for fair housing and equitable and safe living housing conditions for all Americans. That's why when we get to August 28th, we want you to march to your state houses, march to your city and county buildings. Wherever you are, you can be a part of this movement to change the public policies at every level of government. That's what Reverend Jackson's asking you to do. And the second thing he's asking for you to do is to join PUSH, be a part of the movement for change. You don't want to look back 10 years from now and say, I wish I had joined. You have the ability to join right now. I have nothing else to say. I got to go. Reverend Joseph Bryant is going to introduce us to our Fairness in Sports Roundtable.
Greetings, everyone. This is Dr. Joseph Bryant Jr., National Sports Director for the Rainbow Push Coalition. And we have been spending this year celebrating women in sports. We have had an entire year of truly giving women the appropriate honor, recognition, voice, value that they deserve. So oftentimes our male-dominated sports world takes up all of our time and attention, and we fail to realize the power of women, the ones that are involved in the sport on and off the field of play. And today, again, we're so grateful. The NBA has had the benefit of a 20-year journey of an amazing woman, and I'm grateful for the way she has supported and partnered with Reverend Jackson and Rainbow Push over the years. Kathy Behrens, who is the president of social responsibility and player programs for the NBA, she is one that has truly been a champion in the sport. And as a woman, we just thank you so much for what you represent, and to all the young women that are coming up behind you, showing them a way to engage in sports in significance. Thank you, Kathy, for just being there, not only a presence, but an impact agent. You have been amazing. Thank you for taking the time with us today.
Well, that's very generous of you. Thank you, Dr. Bryant. It's great to be with you. It's great to partner with Rainbow Push. It's great to consider Reverend Jackson a friend and a partner on this work. So thank you. I appreciate all those nice words. Thank you so much.
We have received so many inquiries over the past couple of years, as you know, voices have been used to continue to push the issues of equality. A lot of people know that we have supported the WNBA publicly and consistently. We do a lot of work around women's youth sports. And so this has been a really good year and a half for us to do even more to celebrate women in sports. How do you think about your role and your place as a woman in the male-dominated world of the NBA and in NBA executive positions? How does that sit with you? How do you see your place as a beacon, as a light, as a trailblazer? How do you internalize that as you kind of navigate your role and think about the impact that you have?
Yeah, I will say I don't think about it all that much because, you know, I'm not alone. I've been at the league office for 20 years. When I got to the NBA, we had 4 years earlier launched the WNBA. So I was surrounded by both the fantastic on-court women from the WNBA, but also at the league office, whether it was Val Ackerman, who was the original president of the WNBA, still a friend and colleague, now the Big East commissioner. But always at the league office, there were David Stern, Adam Silver, fully supporting and believing in the opportunities for women to play, not only again play on the court, but to play in senior levels at the league office with our teams, So I never felt like I was having to blaze a trail because there were others who blazed it before me, and I was kind of following in their footsteps. But I recognize that one of the things that when you think about the world of sports, I think we have started to create so many different opportunities. And so I love that now you have women who are coaching in the NBA, former WNBA players, whether it's Becky Hammon, Ednisha Curry, just joining Chauncey Billups' staff in Portland. Thrilled about that. So it's all levels. I think that's one of the things I've really enjoyed watching the last couple of years, is that it's now more women having an opportunity on the basketball side. So many of my colleagues, Allison Feaster, another woman I would highlight, who I think could probably be the first female GM in our league. She's a senior executive now at the Boston Celtics. Becky Bonner, another one with the Orlando Magic. So all sorts of different roles. Obviously, people know about Sid Marshall at the Dallas Mavericks. So it's business, it's basketball, it's the league office, it's with our teams, it's with our partners. There's no trailblazing that I've done. I've really been fortunate enough to work with so many fantastic women, but to also make sure that the men who run our league, and they do, our commissioners have always been men, but they make sure that there's room at the table. And that the voices of many diverse candidates and diverse people are heard at every level of our business. And so that makes it more fun, makes it more challenging, but it certainly makes it more satisfying to know that's, we're surrounded by, I think, the best and brightest, and everybody's got an opportunity.
Thank you for mentioning all those amazing women that have these fantastic roles in the league. And one of the things, and I appreciate your humility, even as you view your own role. You've had such a great career and a great impact. And because you're involved in sports, I would love for you to share just a little bit about how you view the other sports. The NBA, as you mentioned, has done a pretty good job, relatively speaking. They've always been on the front lines of social justice issues, always been on the front lines of inclusion, very proactive in allowing voices to be heard and value to be assessed. But that doesn't happen in every sport, nor does it happen across the boards in terms of equal pay or equal opportunities for sponsorships or equal support. What are your thoughts about how we can do more as a society, as fans, even for Rainbow Push, as an advocacy group? What can we do to make sure that the needle is being moved more consistently, so that there can be more opportunities and more doors open for women to be involved in sports?
It's a great question, Dr. Bryan. I like the way you framed it as, it's not just the lane of sports. When you think about the sports world, we touch every industry, truthfully. And so making sure that these issues are talked about, that we're not afraid to have difficult conversations, whether those are conversations around race or those are conversations around gender equity. I think it's incredibly important that we expect more. We sort of have an expectation that it's not it's not isolated, that women are leading organizations or women are playing sports or serving as CEOs or serving as the Speaker of the House or serving as the Vice President of the United States. I mean, the fact that Vice President Harris is the first woman vice president is sort of like, on the one hand, amazing and fantastic, and we love her. And have been able to work with her on a lot of projects over the years, but it's disappointing that it took so long. And so it's just sort of not settling and not believing that, oh, well, now we've got one, that's good enough. We've got to have many more. When you look at the list of Fortune 100 or Fortune 500 CEOs, there have to be more. There have to be more women of color. There have to be more men of color. There have to be more people of diverse backgrounds in those roles. And we have to continue to, I think, call that out and have that expectation, and then create opportunities along the way. You don't just wake up one morning and get to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Somebody's got to give you that chance along the way to grow and to thrive and to make an impact. So I just want to see more of that in every level of our society, in every level society.
And you talk about the path to get there. You know, you don't, kind of show up at the door of day one and say, I want to be the GM of a team. There is a path. There are roles. There are open doors that have to be made. As president of social responsibility, how do you think about making opportunities real, ongoing? And this is partly out of a conversation I had with the sports media folks that we've interviewed recently. Talk about how you view opening the door so this process can begin.
Well, I'll talk about it as it relates to why we felt it was so important when we started the NBA Foundation, that we had that as the mission, because there are, because we have to do that. We have to be intentional about creating those opportunities and about building the pipeline and helping people, especially young people of color, develop those skills and have access to those opportunities. Sometimes it's like, oh, well, it's a nice, there's not a full-time role, but there's an internship. Well, you have to pay people if you want to create diversity in your internship pool.
Yes.
You have to create opportunities for people who aren't so-called connected. And so you've got to make sure that that you're being, we talk about this all the time. We have to be intentional about this work. Diversity and inclusion, as important as it is, you can't just say, oh yeah, everybody wants to work at the NBA. Wouldn't that be great? Of course everybody does. But if you don't find and create opportunities, it's one of the things we're working so much more closely with our partners in the HBCU community in the last year. We used our All-Star game last year to highlight, elevate, and tell those stories, but also to create opportunities. We have a long-standing partnership with the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. So you just have to be intentional. You can't just sort of say, oh, well, everybody wants to work here, so we'll get the best and the brightest. You've got to find the best and the brightest, because they don't always get access to those opportunities.
That's
and
right.
If you're not creating that access, and if you're not encouraging that access, and if you're not giving people the skills they need to then be successful when they have it, that's the thing our foundation is really working on. I think that, to me, is critical. You can't just expect it. You've got to be intentional, and you've got to be really focused on that work. It's super important.
Reverend Jackson often says that it's not a talent deficit, it's an opportunity deficit.
Leave it to him to say it better than I just did.
and because of that, I think, as we wrap up this segment, I have a daughter that I'm so proud of, and I'm thankful for the opportunities I've been able to afford to her. And one of the things that we've done with a lot of our families that we work with, sports families and pro athletes and executives, working with, their daughters and one of the things I always want to do is to have women speak into their lives. That even in sports and oftentimes entertainment and other industries where the male dominance is so prevalent, that sometimes it's not just the access to it is a huge piece, but to hear from someone like Kathy Behrens, who can say, you can do this. Give the either the younger you or a younger student, high school student, college student, some young person that's looking to succeed, young woman that's looking to succeed in sports. What is your 30 to 60-second message to her as she tries to navigate her path?
I always say that there isn't a straight path. And so don't be discouraged by, I know so many people now who leave school and say, oh, my dream job is X. And if you don't get X right away, whether it's to work at the NBA or NFL or anywhere else in sports, and if you don't get that right away, you become discouraged. And the truth is, you have to cast a really wide net. You have to be patient with developing your skills and developing your experiences and developing your network. And if you're truly committed to it, the opportunities, I think, are going to be there. But you have to be patient. Be patient with the process. Don't be patient with yourself. Demand a lot of yourself to build those skills. But don't be afraid to work in government. Don't be afraid to work in a nonprofit organization. My path was not all about sports. I worked in government. I worked in nonprofits. Those experiences really helped me develop the skills and create the opportunities that I've been fortunate enough to have. So there isn't any one specific path. So cast a wide net, be patient, drive, build your skills, build your experiences, and try to connect with people along the way. We talk about this all the time too, that like, you can't be it if you don't see it. Well, see it. It's out there. Look for those opportunities and you'll find your path.
You're always so amazing, Kathy. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Dr. Bryant. Great to be with you. Thank you so much.
Take care.
For 2021, we're excited to get more people engaged and involved in Rainbow Push, supporting the programs of Push for Excellence and the Citizenship Education Fund. Now, if you're interested in public policy and you want to help change the policies that impact those who are incarcerated, you can do so. If you're interested in impacting public policies that benefit education and businesses with social economic solutions, you can do that as well. You can become a policymaker by becoming a member of Rainbow Push right now. Now, if you believe in the scholarships that we've given to thousands of students each year, you can help us out. We've awarded more than $10 million in scholarships year to date. Now, you can help young people achieve a higher education by becoming a member of Rainbow Push right now for the annual fee of only $35. And if you're a student or a senior, it's only $15. You can help us make a difference in the lives of millions. Now, if you watch us every week, or if you listen to us on the radio, or if you're viewing on social media, we need you to become a member. And how do you become a member? It's simple. Visit us at rainbowpush.org and press join. Maybe you'd like to support the work of Push. If so, it's really simple. You can do so by texting the word PUSH, that's P-U-S-H, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give any amount that you feel comfortable giving, or you can call us at 773-256-2775 or go to rainbowpush.org and push donate. So whenever you want to support, you can do it from anywhere. So keep pushing, because we're going to keep pushing for you and keep hope alive.
For many decades, Reverend has had such a role in what we see in diversity in sports. Many of you know he was very close to Jackie Robinson. As a matter of fact, he eulogized Jackie and is still very close to Jackie's family. He was a part of the development of the Rooney Rule. He worked with Muhammad Ali and Bill Russell and others to allow athletes to see themselves as what we call now, in the spirit of LeBron James and others, more than an athlete, and taking that role very seriously. However, we have also been fighting for diversity, more opportunities for minorities and women, not just on the field, but off the field, and being able to manage and be in media and have decision-making positions. And so it's been just a joy for me to watch this amazing woman, Monica McNutt of ESPN. She has just been, as they say, killing it. She's been all over the map, doing some wonderful work, commentary, shows with ESPN, and her background speaks for itself as a former athlete, as well as her training, her education in journalism. But she just brings the whole package to the table. So it's a joy to have you, Monica. Welcome to Rainbow Push. Welcome to the family.
Pastor Bryant, it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for that introduction. I swear I'm going to miss my star ascending because I'm getting the best introductions along the way. But I really appreciate you also pointing out my second degree. I'm not just a former athlete. I have a whole degree in this thing.
Of course. And that's what I want to start with a little bit, because I think it's unique to the story of how athletes manage themselves, especially female athletes, because, and I appreciate this, all the years I've worked with women athletes, speak a little bit just to, the uniqueness of women in sports having a different consciousness sometimes, because, whereas the men did a great job, big time kudos to the brothers and what they did in the bubble. But I think the women have always done a little bit more. Talk a little bit about that.
There's no think, Pastor Brian. WNBA in particular has always been at the forefront of the intersection of social justice issues and sports. And, I've had the opportunity to chat with a few WNBA players. Some are my peers in terms on the collegiate level. They obviously had more game than me. They kept going. But I think that is a league that uniquely has been faced with all these conversations before the rest of the world caught up.
That's right.
Whether you talk about gender identities or race, I mean, they are ahead of the curve. They're just ahead of the curve. And so they are uniquely qualified to stand unified and lead because they've already dealt with it internally. And quite honestly, they understand fully what it is to fight for this idea of equality. whether it's coverage or support, money, whatever the case may be. They've done it. They are living this. There is no faking about it. As Shanae Agumake says, they're not new to this. They are true to this. And that is 100% accurate. I'm very fortunate to host a Clubhouse chat on Sundays with Elena Beard, and she felt very strongly that we create a space to discuss the transitions, as she is now transitioned to the other side and is no longer playing the WNBA. And this past week, Elena, Crystal Langhorne, who just recently retired and now works in the front office of the Seattle Storm, and Marissa Coleman, who is quietly retiring. I hope I'm not breaking any news on her behalf. We were all in this conversation together. But we also were fortunate to be joined by some gentlemen who had NFL experience, and they also talked about their transition. And someone brought up the point about how important it is to know who to trust and for what within your circle. That's because right. As athletes, there's always people grasping at you and trying to get attached to you. And so I just presented the question to the group and wanted to popcorn around and see who has had the experience of having to reevaluate who they keep in their inner circle. Mm-hmm. Funny enough, most of the guys said they had to do it, but the women did not say that was it.
Wow, interesting. Yeah.
And they all pointed out, Marissa and Crystal in particular pointed out, because the opportunities do not come for them the way that they do for their male counterparts. They are forced to work with what they have, and they are fortunate enough to have true friendships and very smart people in their circle. But they talked about how that league is so unique in that they are truly each one teach one. And they are trying to move this thing forward, not just for themselves, but for generations that come behind them. The numbers are not as astronomical, and they were very candid about that. So similar to me in college, you're forced to think about what's next before on the date, before that date actually arrives. And so I think beyond how incredible these women are as athletes, they're also very smart. They are feeling women. They are connected to their communities, and they are powerful. And I think that's what we're seeing. And so I'm getting a little bit on a tangent, and I kind of lost the original question, to be honest with you, Pastor Brian. But
you hit it.
Think about how the WNBA and women in sport have been able to lead. To me, in many ways, it mirrors society, right? Our history books will tell us about however many presidents we had until we got Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, that now shakes up what we have seen in terms of the standard. But all through history, particularly in history in our communities,
yes,
it's Black women. Like Beyonce said, the men lead, but the women keep the tempo. Like, that's real. And so I think that's why the WNBA is so uniquely qualified to be at the forefront of these movements.
Well, that really, it just so rich to me to hear you say that, and to appreciate Black women the way I do. For you to say what you said is very valuable. And because of that, I want to just ask you to give one last thought, comment, if you will, because I think it's important that we all lift as we climb, and you have talked about people in your life that have influenced you, opened doors for you. What do you say to that person coming behind you, that young person, that young adult, that millennial person that's not where you are yet, that teenager, who may be, just trying to figure it out and wants to still have a lane in the sports world, maybe as an athlete, maybe in media, maybe as an owner, maybe as a manager? What do you say to that young person, especially to a young woman, about diversity and about their opportunities?
My mom says it. She's like, she sort of says it flippantly because she don't trust doctors per se. She's like, they're practicing. Doctors and lawyers, they're practicing. But we have now extended that to, we are all practicing. I'm a practicing journalist. I'm a practicing sister, daughter, friend, industry person, media person. And so in my practice, I have made it practice, one, to lead with gratitude, Pastor Brian. I think that applies for me both personally and professionally, because the minute I'm ready to complain about being worn out in the month of March because they're running me ragged and I got 5,000 games to keep up with, this is what I prayed for. This is what I've worked for. And so if I can reframe to lead with gratitude, then I find that energy to get the work done. So I think personally and professionally, lead with gratitude. Do your math in a way that you are counting your blessings and not looking at your subtractions, right? And then second, industry specific, you got to give it time, and be proud of the person that you take with you. Take yourself with you wherever you go. I can remember getting into this space with so much energy. Oh, I played ball in DC. I know this area. Like, I went to Georgetown. They about to give me this top 10 market sports anchor job with no experience. Girl, who are you kidding? What is wrong with you? So you have to give it time. And giving it time, I don't mean mock time. I mean, continue to be diligent. I mean, to work on your craft. I mean, to expand your network. Try different things. Continue to hone who you are and how you want to be represented in this space. Because time, baby, you just can't fake that seasoning. And then take yourself with you wherever you go. Early in my career, there was a little bit of a conversation about my hair. And I remember saying to this person who I loved and is a good friend, I'm not doing nothing to my hair. Like, here I am. What? They're going to have to get with it, right?
That's it. Yeah.
I cannot say, Pastor Bryant, with concrete evidence, whether my hair has added time to my journey or not. I can say opportunities that I went after that did not go to a woman that looked like me. But either way, when I take myself with me wherever I go, that includes at the end of my day when I look in the mirror and lay my head down on my pillow and I am happy and whole in how I've been able to show up as myself.
Love it.
So lead with gratitude, give it time, but don't waste time. Give it time, make the most out of your time, and take yourself with you wherever you go because the world needs you.
Monica McNutt, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have enjoyed listening to her as much as I have enjoyed talking with her. And I'm just so excited to see everything that you're doing. We're going to make sure that we promote everything that you're connected to. We'll post out all your social media stuff, make sure people can follow you, and then they can see you on screen, they can listen to you, and they can be a part of the Monica McNutt world as you continue to rise, continue to do what you're saying right there on that shirt. His grace, my grind. Real good, Monica. Thanks so much. God bless.
Thanks, Pastor Bryant.
Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Joseph Bryant Jr. I'm the National Sports Director for Rainbow Push, doing continual work in the area of gender equity in sports. Part of the battle, part of the fight is always for equality and opportunities. And Reverend Jackson has always encouraged us to make sure that every platform is opening doors and allowing access to opportunities to those that aren't always included. And so we've been building this conversation. I'm really thankful for all the women who've been a part of the dialogue. And now my sister from the ATL is coming on board, and I'm just excited to hear from her. And she's coming on, not only as a former baller, but now a business guru. And so Nakia Sanford, it's good to have you on again. Thank you for taking the time.
It is exciting to be on with you again today myself. Thank you, my brother, for having me on.
You do so many awesome things. And so I don't even know where to start outside of the fact that, part of a conversation is looking at women in sports and really the journey, the path, and a lot of the differences that we see between male and female sports. Talk a little bit first, though, just so the people can know a little of your background. Tell us about your journey into basketball and to pro basketball and how that was for you as you committed to the process of just being your best so you could be at the top of your game.
Well, I have a little bit of a different story than most of my friends, my basketball sisters. They was like, yeah, I've been wanting to play basketball since I was like knee-high to a grasshopper. I was actually track and field athlete first. So I'm a double state champion here in Georgia, track and field as well as basketball. And for me, just being a little brown girl from Georgia, like nobody in my family played sports. I wasn't exposed to sports, so I'm a little different. So even now people start talking to me about sports and I'm like, yeah, let me go research that a little bit for some things. But I played I played at the University of Kansas under Marion Washington, who was also an Olympic coach. She was the only Black female coach that I knew coming out of high school. At that time, of course, we have the historic Vivian Stringer and a slew of others as well, but that was when I was exposed to. University of Kansas, I stopped playing basketball, and that was when the WNBA was like 3 years old, I believe. And I'm like, hey, that little WNBA thing looks kind of fun. And so I was actually an assistant coach at Topeka High School in Topeka, Kansas, and waitressing at a steakhouse. And I'm like, God had that little itch. I just had this itch. I was like, I think I'm supposed to be doing something else. And so I had a decent college career. But if you lined up my high school basketball team, it was like, which one of them gonna go pro? It probably wouldn't have been Kia. So it was kind of funny that I ended up turning that into a 14-year professional basketball career. I played a majority of my years with the Washington Mystics for 8 years there. And then I was in Phoenix for 2 years. And then I did my last half season was in Seattle, and also played internationally in 8 different countries. So 11 years in the W, 14 years total overall.
We've been celebrating the WNBA, obviously this year, the 25th anniversary, and just really appreciate the impact that the WNBA has had in the sports arena altogether. But, one of the things that you mentioned about your own path, not only having other things that you did as a career before and obviously now, but playing overseas. Talk a little bit about that, because that's a huge difference. A lot of times, the casual fan may not realize when we talk about gender equity in sports, these other guys aren't going over, KD and LeBron and Steph, and, they're not trying to play other than the Olympics. They're not trying to find gigs in the off season because they don't have to. Talk a little bit about that, because it's a very unique challenge to the women's game, because you all literally have to find more opportunities to play.
Yeah, we play year round. And I will tell you this, most of the men that I know that played sports have an enormous amount of respect for female athletes, because they understand that not only do we go through the gruesomeness of and gruelingness of a season, even though it's a shorter season than the NBA, but we play year round. So I might have gotten a 1 week break in between my seasons. If I was lucky, it was 10 days. So for us, on a financial perspective, and also because this was our job, we viewed this as our job. This was our career. We didn't want to sit on the sidelines for 8 months and wait to go, and wait to play. We had to make sure that we were honing our craft as well. The opportunity to play overseas for me, again, I'm from, a small family in Georgia. Like we never imagined, going to the places that we went. So that was an enormous opportunity and I was very blessed. But you're right. We don't have, it's changing. My niece, was like, TT, oh my God, Candace Parker's on the front of, 2K. Like she's like super excited about having the opportunity.
Yeah.
So we're starting to get some more opportunities out there on the financial side of things. But yeah, just about 90, I would venture to say 97 to 98% of all WNBA athletes are playing overseas.
And that's part of the planning process. This is something that, the sisterhood talks about, being around WNBA players for the past 5 or 6 years, hearing the dialogue about how they make their money, how they ensure that, there's a love of the game. Yes, but there's a financial consideration. And I guess for us as an organization, and Reverend Jackson's kind of tasked us with this, we want to continue to highlight women in the sports world because there needs to be more equity. And we saw some pretty egregious things the past year, the NCAA, that fiasco with, having some, a little throw in together gym compared to, this fitness center for the men. How do you help, not only educate, but empower women and then organizations like ours, or even just advocates in general, to know, hey, we still got a long way to go because women aren't treated fairly, even though they're playing the same game. There's some things that should be no-brainers, and unfortunately, women are getting the short end of the stick.
I have had this conversation amongst my, sisterhood quite often, and I'm I'm a very realistic person. Okay, I'm not. When we're talking about equity in sports for women, we do have to be realistic about the bottom line and the numbers, right? But part of that is just heart. And part of that is who's around and who's making those decisions. And so what I feel like is happening, and I see that happening on the NBA side. I mean, I'm seeing my basketball sisters like get in these front office positions and they're passing that, because once you go through the door, you bring other people with you, and Nike, Amazon, the NBA, they're all making these strides to make sure that women are a part of the conversation, but also in positions where they're part of the decision making. And I think that's where the difference is. When you look at the leadership across the NCAA, who made that decision? Like there clearly wasn't a female athlete on that board. And I need to look that up. Now that I bring it up, I want to see, because what happens is once you have people, it's like the same thing as diversity. When you have more culture at your table you're making decisions as an organization, you're going to make different decisions because you have someone who has Hispanic background, someone who's African-American, someone who has a different background. The same thing with the NCAA. I'm like, who approved this? Someone approved that. And so I think having more women who were ex-athletes, not ex-athletes, I was corrected on that a while back. Once you're an athlete, you're an athlete. More athletes on those boards and in those positions will make a difference and move that forward.
Absolutely. And I tell you, being an athlete, male or female, one of the things that you end up having is a sense of camaraderie that just lives. It's a different thing though with the women's sport. And I applaud the WNBA in particular. How did you feel this past year watching your sisters really take hold of social justice issues? I mean, the brothers, the fellas, they did fine too, gotta give them their props, but the women took that thing to another level. I mean, everything from, the unfortunate killings of Black men and women, the whole, push to register to vote, getting behind a candidate to vote, I mean, just things that they said, we're going to all get in on this, we're going to all kneel, we're going to all wear the shirt. How did it, make you feel watching that as a part of your fraternity, just taking, ownership of those moments and say, hey, we've got this platform, this is how we want to use it?
I was extremely proud. Dr. Bryan. I can't I think that doesn't even seem like a big enough word. What I also loved about that moment was you saw Black women in a position on a platform that were not just happy to be there, but wanted to make some changes. But then on the other side, you also saw what real America looks like in a lot of corners when you're not, when we're not polarized. My white sisters, my international sisters, my Latina sisters were all joining hands and wearing t-shirts as well. And for me, I feel like that's how we make great change, because we have to do it together. And so what made me most proud was just to see my sisters taking a stance, but also showing America and women in general, hey, listen, we do have a voice. There are some things that we can do. And when you get put on a platform, it is your responsibility.
Sure.
It's your responsibility to make sure that you're not polarizing, but you're bringing people together.
You've transitioned into something pretty positive, and I want you to just talk a little bit about how you both empower women from your seat, as well as the fact you've used that same message to put yourself into this, as I look behind you, the RVP position that you're in. It's been a path for you.
I forget sometimes.
It's a path and a testimony. So just talk about it.
So, as far as my sisterhood is concerned, it was, Rusha Brown, and I have to give my sister props, because she was the connecting piece for most of us, because the W is still evolving. There wasn't a lot of space for retired players to figure it out. The NBA had to evolve there also. So we have these conversations, and my sister Rusha has been phenomenal and instrumental in gathering us. And now the NBRPA has now welcomed a space for former WNBA athletes as well. So definitely applaud them. And Scott is doing a great job over there. Scott Rochelle is doing a great job over there of making sure that we have a safe space. And Rusha, of course, has been the spearhead in connecting us all. So these are just conversations that we have. And, from a transition perspective, I was just extremely blessed. I get my sense and sensibility from my mama, and my daddy was the consummate entrepreneur. I just knew when I retired that I didn't necessarily want to do like 9 to 5, that I wanted to work for myself, because I saw so many places around me where people were unhappy. So I just had to do some research. I Googled, what do athletes do well in? Like, I'm such a nerd. But everything was sales, and I didn't know anything about sales, and I didn't want to go into sales. But I did a lot of research. And so transitioning into financial services, there were 2 main reasons that I decided to make that transition. The first was, I was like, oh, great. I can be the only one in the room again, and make sure that I'm not the only one in the room, because I was used to being in places and spaces where I was the only person that looked like me. And then the second reason was because I didn't have a me when I was playing ball.
Wow.
And I know I went to a box firm and said, hey, I had a comment in my bank account. I'm like, I'm from here. What do with this? And so, I went to a major financial services company, not knowing that you don't walk into their office, they call you, right? And so I was like, hey, I want to open an investment account. It was like, yeah, you need $250,000 just to talk to me. And I remember that feeling of like, wow, I thought I had been super successful. And I was a female athlete, and we make more money now. But to me, that I had a lot of money, right? To have someone tell me I didn't have enough. I wanted to be the person for my fellow athletes and other hardworking Americans that I didn't have when I was working my hardest. And I also wanted to be a representation. I knew no business women. I knew no Black business women.
Wow.
I knew no women, period, in financial services, and specifically no Black women in financial services. So I wanted to be what it was that I wanted to see, and that was important to me.
Well, we're going to continue to invite you to moments like this and celebrate you in moments like this, because not only do you have such a strong voice and advocacy for women in sports, as a woman in business, I think you're worthy of celebration and appreciation. And I'm going to make sure that anytime we have moments like this, not just when we have women in sports conversations, but now you can actually wear both hats as a woman entrepreneur, women in business, financial services. We do so many things in that vein. And so I want to include you in that work going forward. Tell the people how we can find you. And for those of us that don't have any comments yet, we could start somewhere with you. How do we get in touch with you? How do we find you? How do we connect with you to get some help?
I would say the easiest way is to just find me on LinkedIn, send me a little note. I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit. I do have IG. Of course, my niece told me Facebook is for old people, but I'm on there. Yeah,
I get it. I hear that from my kids too. Yep.
I'm like, oh, I don't know, right? Okay, so I do have an IG page. I don't use it as much, but SS Nakia is my IG. NS43 is my Twitter. But the most direct way to find me is to find me on LinkedIn, or feel free to shoot me an email, nakiasanford@yahoo.com, or find me on all the platforms under my name.
LinkedIn is a spot for people that are doing business, and you're doing it, and you're doing it well. I appreciate you so much because you always have so much to contribute, so much to add, and so much value to conversations like this. And people just need to know how amazing you are. So thank you, Nakia, for taking the time. And we're going to continue to not only encourage women in the athletic world, but we want them to be like you and say, hey, you know, when I finish playing ball, we do have more to do. We do have more impact to have. And just as a side note, I'm sure you still got some game too. So, you know.
I mean, you know, I got just a little something. Thanks so much, Dr. Bryan. I really appreciate.
I appreciate you.
Allow me being part of the conversation.
You're always awesome. Everybody just know that my sister's available, so you can begin to put some commas into your digitized bank world. And at the same time, appreciate you for what you mean to the sports world and now to the women in business. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tim Lee.
And I am Edishawn McChristian.
And we have a special announcement for you.
We do.
Listen, do you have any children at home between 6 and 16-year-olds, especially on Saturdays doing nothing?
Well, if you do, Rainbow Push Coalition have hope for you.
And that hope is in the form of a STEM and sports summer camp.
Amazing. What does that include?
It includes STEM. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Okay.
And that's going to break down into we teaching your students jobs for the future.
Amazing.
Drones, right?
Yes, digital gaming.
Digital gaming and robotics.
Coding too.
And coding, yes.
Yes.
We're also going to be teaching financial literacy. What are they going to be able to do with that money once they make it?
Invest. They're going to invest. I think so.
And then we cannot do anything, especially in this day and age, without the fitness and the sport.
I'm ready for it. So guess what? Get ready. I'm on turn rope. I'm jumping. We teaching double dutch. We teaching basketball. And we're running with the best. This whole event is free. I mean, free sports, free play,
and free learning.
Free food.
Listen, if you want to take advantage of these opportunities that Reverend Jackson continues to give to the community after 55 years.
55 years? You mean half of a century plus 5? That's mathematics. Okay.
Come down to Rainbow Push, the headquarters at
930 East 50th Street.
Or come to the website at www.pushexcel.org for more information. Listen, the dates of the program as we conclude the dates are
July 17th,
which is this Saturday.
This
and
Saturday.
It ends
August 28th.
Yes, so we have all this time to have this much fun with your children, okay? Listen, when you get down here, you're going to see and hear Etta McChristian.
You're going to see Tim Lee.
And we are going to sign off now by saying, keep hope alive.
I am. Now look, I am somebody.
And we're pushing for peace.
Push Excel's goal is to inspire students to strive for excellence in education in spite of personal, family, and community challenges that they might experience. How do we do this? By advocating for educational policies that guarantee equal funding for all students without regard to race or economic standing. By engaging parents, students, and teachers in pursuing high-quality education and striving for educational excellence at every level. And by forging partnerships with community-based and public sector stakeholders in education. Now, Push Excel is a national model program with the purpose of connecting principals, parents, popular personalities, and students in a bond and to support students at every level on the educational ladder. Now, we want you to become a member of the Rainbow Push Coalition and Push Excel. Your annual membership can help us to change policies that impact students, colleges, and universities all around the country. So step up and sign up today. Membership is only $35, and if you're a student or a senior, $15. Just go to our website, rainbowpush.org, and push join to become a member or push donate to support the Push Excel program. You can also text the word Push Excel, that's PUSHEXCEL, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give us any amount that you feel comfortable giving or call us at 773-256-2656. 2775. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you. And remember to keep hope alive.
Dr. Kim, I went to jail with a group of 7 students, July 17, 1960, almost 60 years ago. We never stopped moving. I lost a few of jail cells and death. We never stopped moving. I thought it was time to write some of it down so the older generation can learn how we did, and what we did, and how global it was. Whether speaking about Mandela in South Africa, India, Qatar, about Gandhi in India, here at home. This book tells the story, so please get it and give it to your friends. Read it, let's argue about it, let's discuss it.
Yep, so the book is Keeping Hope Alive, Sermons and Speeches of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. It's quite a good collection. You know, we've got sermons and speeches from around the globe because you have made such a global impact, not just here in the US, but around the world.
Thank you for tuning in to our International Saturday morning broadcast. We need your support. Here are ways to give to Rainbow Push Coalition. Text PUSH, P-U-S-H, to 41444 to support the work of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. and Rainbow Push Coalition. When you shop, Amazon gives. Visit Amazon Smile and select Push for Excellence as your charitable organization by starting your shopping at smile.amazon.com.
We are Sanctuary. We are a sanctuary.
When I think of Rainbow Push, I think of 2 words: social justice,
education advocacy,
political empowerment,
freedom and equality,
corporate partnership.
Stop the violence. Save the children. Don't get in. Shut it down. If we don't get in, shut it down.
Political change,
inclusion, evolution, progress, justice.
Jesse Jackson.
Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
We want to be bridges to end these cultural gaps.
Going forward by hope, not backwards, by fear.